Hello everyone, this is Cooper Nichols with the Tuskegee Soil Survey Office, located in Region 7 in Tuskegee, Alabama on the Tuskegee University Research Farm. I'm glad to have y'all here looking at our presentation, and just want to go on through a few soils that we have primarily in our soil survey area. Marvin, which is a typical haplodont, is actually, this profile is on our right behind our office. We have a pit situated behind our office, so we use it to teach our soil judging team, along with any other students or outreach that we teach. Rattlesnake forks, which are lamellic soils, as you can see in this profile picture, the bands of lamellae in the face. Bama, which is the state soil of Alabama, typic paleudolts. Porch being plinthic paleudolts, and Malbilla, which are aquacaplodolts, all of which have a host of very unique and differing properties, so we're very fortunate to have quite a diverse suite of soils in our area. Our coverage areas, the 133C and MLRA 135A, the upper middle coastal plain fall line, and the Blackland Prairie. We cover 30 counties in Alabama and 9 in western Georgia. And our office staff consists of John Burns, which is a soil survey office leader, George Otto, which is the ecological site specialist, and myself, which is the senior soil scientist for the 7 Tuskegee office. Last year, or fiscal year 2020, we had several projects that were kind of carried over into 2021. Either pending data or refresh problems, but 3 of which were NOTCOM projects. Maxwell Air Force Base, which was probably our most intense, Denley Field, and Fort Benning. Denley Field project was primarily conducted through using digital soil mapping techniques, along with Fort Benning was as well. We used some inference along with other existing soil survey data to kind of extrapolate and pull those soils across Denley Field and create an actual publishable soil survey product. Fort Benning will be continued on into FY 2022 to kind of fine tune some of those mapping units, and with as large as the area is and as much detailed data needed, we want to make sure that those map units are as solid as they can be. But we have updated, and we have it will be published the end of this fiscal year, all 3 of those NOTCOM areas. So there will be no longer any more NOTCOM areas in Alabama. MLRA projects, in 2020 we had, as you can see here, they're labeled in kind of an off-brown color: the recorrelation of the Bowie series, Troop Association remapping, and the Shibuda Troop Association remapping. You'll notice that there's a lot of Autauga County projects here, and the reason for that is Autauga was mapped back in the early 70s, and the agricultural fields and agricultural areas were very highly intensely mapped. The line work is very good. Although the data is slightly outdated, the line work is very good. So the problem with that is the forested areas and the areas that were not under agricultural production in the 70s were kind of neglected. The data is very broad. It's not very useful for conservation planning or landowners. So we've taken, over the last 3 or 4 years, taking a strong initiative to update Autauga County and make it a more usable, making it more usable for the conservation staff and our clients and landowners. The recorrelation of the Bowie series, though, we recorrelated the Bowie series, which is out of Texas, to Dothan and Malbus primarily. Other soils in between there, but we actually created a sampling focus or a sampling project to sample from 200 feet in elevation all the way up to 700 feet in elevation in Elmore County and Montgomery County. Particle size analysis, CEC, and base saturation data was collected for all of these these sampling locations, and they were incrementally sampled in 50-foot elevation. So we were able to determine the silt content in CEC was directly influenced and linked to the elevation. So higher silt soils being your malleus on your lower terrace positions, and as you stepped up out of around 375 feet, towards the fall line, you started decreasing in silt content. Age of the sediments were older, and more along with your Dothan, and then on into the Marvin series when you get around 600 to 700 feet, which is actually situated on the fall line. The Troop Association and the Shibuda Troop Association were all redelineated and will be published at the end of fiscal year 2021. The Jones-Lucedale Shibuda, Sumter Faceville Vaden, Troop Lummi Sand, and the Faceville Bowie projects were all fieldwork conducted in fiscal year 2021, and will all be published as well at the end of fiscal year 21. For the time frame of this presentation, we will discuss the Sumter Faceville Vaden SVE project in further detail. As far as our dynamic soil properties study, we will discuss that also towards the end of this presentation, but it was conducted and is ongoing and being conducted on the Troop Lummi Sand 2 to 8% map unit. For the Tuskegee Soil Survey Office, our duties and collaborations, we work heavily with the Loxley Soil Survey Office and other soil survey offices such as the Fort Myers office and any other coastal zone soil survey effort that we can. We actively collect field data, run data analyses with Auburn University, and have looked at developing sulfide distribution maps and other research-based studies in the marsh on the Gulf Coast. We look forward to working with that staff and all coastal zone soil survey staffs in the future. Technical soil services. In 2020 and 2021, we acted as a resource soil scientist, conducting wetland delineations, wetland reserve easement investigations, and a host of other outreach duties for the state of Alabama. We also act as assistant soil judging coaches for Tuskegee University, and look forward to our upcoming regional contest at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. We collaborate commonly with Auburn University, University of Alabama, and Tuskegee University with a host of graduate level research projects. Recently, Auburn University, we've worked on ESD and dynamic soil property studying. University of Alabama being a TUI project with the Forest Dynamics Laboratory and Dr. Justin Hart. And also Dr. Anthony Coomey at Tuskegee University working on a host of other projects for his graduate students, along with teaching his soil science labs, both field and GIS portions. Our NOTCOM project, as discussed earlier, the Maxwell Air Force Base, was kind of a blank canvas when we gained access to the project. It's very urbanized, most of the site has been anthropogenically altered. So you'll see in the next slide that most of our map units, with the exception of the Laverne-Smithdale complex and the Riverview, Chewacla, and Buncombe soils floodplain unit, all of which had either urban or anthropogenically altered material within them. It's very difficult to dig in these areas. Most areas were off limits, so with the help of engineering and U.S. Air Force staff and multiple site visits, we were able to glean enough information to produce as we feel, a very useful soil survey product. Our MLRA project that we'll focus on for 2021 was the Sumter Faceville Vaden project, SVE as we call it. Again, this is in Autauga County, Alabama, and as previously discussed, the soil survey delineation areas were very coarse. This project had 2 delineations over almost 16,000 acres. So as you can imagine, that is almost unuseful for most any project. And the soils within it, being Sumter, being a Rendolic Utrodept, Faceful being a Tippecanoe Haplodont, Tippecanoe Udult, and Vaden being a Vertisol, there's the differences pedologically in those soils is quite large. So through over 50 pedon descriptions and approximately 75 other observations, we were able to accurately remap the SVE distribution and feel that the product that's produced will be very beneficial for conservation planning along with landowners moving forward. Laboratory data was ran on particle size analysis, CEC, base saturation, some of which in the Tuskegee Soil Survey Office Lab there, and also through Auburn University collecting base saturation data. As you can see in this slide, our distribution from our point distribution, the blue lines were pedon descriptions, while there were other observational points throughout these mapping units. We don't have those showcased on this map. But overall, I believe our distribution of pedon descriptions and transects and traverses encompassed the majority of our mapping area. Just a little bit about the line work, data collection, and statistical approach. Predominantly, Brantley and Okolala dominated this area. We did have areas of Sumter, Hannon complexes, which Sumter obviously being derived off of calcareous chalks, smectitic mineralogy, along with Hannon being an acid cap over calcareous chalks. These soils do have high base saturation, and data confirmed that their base saturation throughout the profile was greater than 35%, so they were mapped as alpha sols. Brantley and Okolala in specifically is derived off of glauconitic sands, which is quite a unique area. We also collected ESD data in most of these map units, in all of the map units, and in several differing polygons or delineations. George Otto, Ecological Site Specialist, assisted us with the identification along with sampling of these products, and they will be used in further ecological site descriptions moving forward in the next several years. You can see in the image here the red line being the original delineation, and the others delineations being the ones that we cut out. So a much more detailed product. Here are the 2 main series that we mapped: the Brantley and the Okolala series. You can see the glauconitic sands that are kind of cross-bedded in the lower part of the Okolala profile, and the Brantley series, deep dark red haplodalphs. From our DSP project, we focused on the Troop Loamy Sand 2-8, which was actually recorrelated to Heidel Wadley, along with Blanton and Rattlesnake Forks. However, we primarily focused on 4 main areas: silviculture for loblolly and longleaf, agricultural crops, and hay and pasture crops. The longleaf area, or the agricultural cropped areas, is kind of hard to find for grosserinic soils. So therefore, we used food plots from hunters that had been under continuous till for the last 5 years. All silviculture sites must be at minimum of 15 years in age. Again, all of our sampling techniques were under the guidelines of the NRCS, and all samples will be sent to the National Soil Survey Center in Lincoln. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.